So it's a funny story, right? So our bank account is in the negative, right? So we had three counts, three charges come through for YouTube Premium, but they show up as Apple purchase on your bank statements, right? It's such a funny story. So the my bank, Community America Credit Union, it's the funniest thing, right? So I've had my bank account. I've got like 3 accounts with like 6 accounts with primary checking and savings for personal, and then 2 businesses, right? So this is a funny story, right? So if you think it's hilarious then and you can relate, then let me know. But so all of a sudden my bank account's negative, and I'm thinking, well, that's weird. How did that happen? I had gotten a new bank card and put it in just to download an app on my phone for something totally unrelated to subscriptions, because it's a funny story too about how subscriptions can rip you off through your Apple Pay card if you use a card on your phone at all. So if you no longer have a subscription with like Netflix or YouTube Premium or anything through your phone, if you have an Apple phone, which I do because it's a funny story, right? And so the bank evidently has, and when I set up my bank, I said, I specifically remember telling them absolutely under no circumstances do I want any type of overdraft on my account. And it's a funny story, right? Because you've probably, been in that situation too, right? And then so I had to go back and look at my paperwork because I got 2 $28 overdraft charges and fees. And I just was like, wow, that's a really funny story, because I remember telling you guys specifically that you weren't to do that. And so it's such a funny story, right? Because I remember having this conversation with the bank. And so obviously I called to talk to them about it, and they try to tell me this other funny story about how, well, all of their cashback accounts, all of their, checking accounts are automatic enrollment for overdraft protection. And then it has a box you can check on the disclosure you sign when you open your account that says, I specifically checked the box that said, it's such a funny story, isn't it? I checked the box that said, do not allow this on my debit cards and purchases with my debit card. And so obviously, because I didn't see a spot where it gave me the option to opt out, it's such a funny story, isn't it? What happens is they automatically enrolled me, and I wasn't aware of this. And so I checked the box that said, don't do this. So we use our debit cards, and they've got this technicality gray area where, and then they tried to tell me on the phone that this really funny story about how they can update their terms, and that probably wasn't the same. And so then ended up having to ask them to dig up the original disclosure so I could see what I signed, and then the account number was missing on the document, which is, I told you, a really funny story, right? And then of course there was only a box, and then I looked and I noticed, well, why didn't they give me an option? I said, I clearly told you guys this. And then all of a sudden the funny part of the story is they don't have any idea what conversation I'm talking about. And so in the real world where we do remember things that we say and do, it's kind of critical and important that we remember things like, things we agree to when we're doing business with establishments and institutions. So here's the other funny thing. So they're not willing. So they, we disputed the charges, 3 of them for $18.99, and they show up as Apple. We had canceled our subscriptions. I told you it's a hilarious story. We had canceled our YouTube Premium subscriptions, but I went to download this other app, right? And my iPhone required me to have a debit card or some type of card on file just to download some free app. And I don't know why that is, but, and then unbeknownst to me, the funniest part of the story is all of a sudden, just by adding my card to my Apple phone, Apple Pay made me put a card on my phone so that I could download a free app. and have access to the app catalog or whatever for free apps. Said even though there won't be any purchase. And then that prompts my old subscription to automatically start again. And so I have an issue with that, obviously, because we didn't consent to that. And we told our bank about this and disputed the charges. And then before they even did the investigation, they didn't even ask for proof that our subscription had been canceled before they denied our dispute. And so basically, I told you it was a hilarious story, right? So basically, they refunded two $28 overdraft charges, and but they wouldn't put the 60 some odd dollars back in our account for the original dispute. And the whole point of the fact of the matter is how we pay for those subscriptions when they're tied to our Apple phones is through a debit card. And that's the box that I checked. I told you it's such a funny story, isn't it? And so it's so crazy to me how they get away with this glitch and this deceptive business practice where they just really are screwing the American people over institutionally. And it just amazes me that no one has any effing clue that they're doing these things. And so that's why I'm making this video, to tell this funny story, because I just think it's hilarious that my account and the bank that I trusted with my money and my family and, you know, my financial well-being and things like that. Now, oh, and also the funniest part of the story is